If I can get a customer successful, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're willing to scream from the mountaintops and go help me write a customer case study about it. Usually that requires them having a really good experience with our team and with our people, and something is touching their heart a little bit more than, hey, I got everything I needed, checked all the boxes, like let's get in and let's get out.
Welcome to Onboarding Therapy. In this episode, Sherelle and I sit down with Wingrove, Chief Experience Officer at Aptitude 8, to explore why customer success is more like hospitality than you think. Shares how curiosity, authenticity, and small, thoughtful touches can make a big impact on retention. Let's get into it. Welcome to Onboarding Therapy. Today, we have Wingrove on, who works at Aptitude 8, and we'll get into kind of your background and what you do at Aptitude 8 a little bit more. But we've known of you and we've talked to you for several years here at Arrows, and Aptitude 8 is a HubSpot partner that we work with often and think of often. So it's fun to hear your perspective from kind of the agency side of things, and excited to dive into it.
Absolutely. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me. I've got lots of things to discuss and sort of unpack in this therapy session. So I'm excited to get into it.
Amazing.
Yeah, let's jump in. Do you want to maybe start with an intro and tell us who you are? A little plug.
Yeah, self-plugs, all for it. I am Wingrove. I'm the Chief Experience Officer for Aptitude 8, one of the founding members, and obviously on leadership team, helping to really build the vision and the company and how we're achieving that vision through our mission. I've been here since day one, and we're a technical consulting firm. I will correct you there a little bit. We don't like to consider ourselves an agency, but a lot of the same principles still apply. So it will be relevant for the conversation. But yeah, we're a technical consulting firm in the HubSpot ecosystem. Like to think of ourselves as sort of the go-to partner for any sort of technical implementations, multi-hub implementations. Custom integrations are a big piece of our work, migrations. So really looking at HubSpot through the ops lens and touching all of the hubs and all of the pieces and making sure that there's harmony in your CRM.
I'm going to jump right into some questions. I was admiring your LinkedIn the other day, and just kind of, I hear a lot from CS folks about, like I get a lot of these questions from people that I network with and reach out to about managing career and growing through customer success, customer experience. And I noticed a lot of your background was in marketing of different sorts, which is really cool and awesome. And just curious, like for the listeners, how did you go about making that transition? Why did you make that transition? How did you navigate that career and growth to get to that level of now being a chief experience officer and kind of overseeing that with like ProServe in there and marketing in there? So any like advice, thoughts, feedback you can share on that, I think is always helpful for the CS folks listening in.
Yeah, for sure. I think the first thing is you can do it. There's no real rules that say that you can't jump from one area to another. But yeah, to your point, I have a very long and decorated career as a marketer in the B2B SaaS space. So that was my jam for like 15 years almost. When I got into Aptitude 8 is really when I took a bit of a pivot and took more of the entrepreneurial route in and of itself, because that just wasn't a part of my DNA prior. And so as we began to build the organization, obviously I was offering my marketing skill sets through the services that we were providing. But as we began to sort of evolve as an organization, we went a little bit more that technical route, which is sort of how I defined who we are today. And so my marketing abilities were only going to take me so far. Obviously, I oversee our marketing team here at Aptitude 8, and I have a lot to offer there, of course. But what the business really needed was a dedicated focus on our customers, right? We're in services. We talk to our customers every day, but what are we doing to make their experience spectacular and amazing and different than just like the day-to-day and the run-of-the-mill? How do we make their experiences better? How do we make our revenue goals? How do we achieve our own revenue goals, right? It's sort of the byproduct of making your customer more successful is you make yourself more successful. And so I started to think, in the beginning I was insecure and a little nervous about it because I am a marketer and I don't have the same, 15 years of experience in CS. And I started to think about what really I bring to the table here and where is the overlap? Because there really is a ton of overlap between marketing and CX. And it's why we house both of those functions under the same leader at Aptitude 8. But a lot of it is psychology, right? How do you get someone to buy a product? How do you compel someone to click the thing? That's all very marketing. How do you compel your customer? How do you make them happy when they're upset? How do you meet them where they are and talk to them? And granted, marketing is a lot of one-to-many and, sales is one-to-one and CS often is one-to-one, but there's certainly opportunity for customer marketing, which I think is kind of the intersection between CX and marketing. So having that dedicated focus is important. The other piece is creativity, right? I think oftentimes there's the wrong misconception that to be creative, you have to be an artist, you have to be in marketing, you have to be in performing arts. Well, I believe you can be, I said this yesterday and I got some flack for it, but I just threw out an example. I was like, I think if you're an accountant, you could be pretty creative too. Like there are a lot of different ways. I said that and the joke was don't cook your books, but there's creativity in everything. And so I think when it comes to your customers and how you interact with them and how you deliver your product or your service, there's a lot of creativity that's required to actually provide the experience for them, because it requires understanding who the customer is, where they are, what you do, how you talk to them, and how you meet them. So those are the big areas of overlap. And then I think I also just have a bit of a sales. I started in sales, and I'm a chatty Cathy. I like to talk to people, I like to connect with people. And so the customer facing component always has driven me. And so getting to understand people, and if you're genuinely curious, you'll get the feedback that you need, and that's what's going to make you better. And so to be curious, you have to be authentic. You have to come across as your true self. Most people, whether they like to believe it or not, it's a subconscious understanding of whether somebody is being authentic. So I don't know if you've ever worked with like professional coaches, or like even my therapist is like, if someone is being not authentic, oftentimes in your brain, you're not thinking they're not being authentic. You're just thinking something's off here. I don't know what it is, but I don't know if I like this person, or like, I just like don't feel so great about it. That's really your body and your brain's way of trying to assess whether someone is coming to you as themselves and being real. And so I think to do a really good job in CS, you have to be authentic. And to be authentic, you have to be curious. You have to genuinely care and want to understand why something is or isn't working for someone. And it genuinely, like, what is their day like? What are you like? What makes you tick? You start to get into some of the things that, I don't know, maybe are coming across as a little cheesy and a little fluffy and like, emotion-y, but we're humans. We're literally humans. We're not selling to ones and zeros. We're or marketing or servicing. We're literally interacting with humans. And we all sort of, as much as we like to think we're different, I think we all have more in common than we do different. I will stop yapping.
No, I love that. I mean, you touched on so many things that resonate, starting with why Kim and I even decided to start this onboarding therapy session or podcast, in that we would have our customers come to us, and to your point of everyone being human and there's so much psychology and emotion involved, oftentimes my calls would start with people just venting a little bit about marketing did this, or sales didn't do that, or not to always point the blame there, success didn't do this, or my colleagues also didn't help with this bit. And we gave the space for that. And then once you have some of that, though, now you have a connection. Now you've opened up to me. There's a little bit more trust built, and you've shared actual problems. So if I can go help you solve those problems, you're going to be a far better both advocate, but also user of the product or service or whatever it is I'm selling you, right? So having that little bit of room there to let people both talk and vent and share, but also empathizing and leaning into that, I think is so powerful. And I love so much that you are leading CX, because so much of marketing is critical to the customer experience. It's like the first thing you're interacting with, whether it's on a website or an ad or email campaign. And it is such a strong, and I think often missing, feedback loop at most companies, where they're not talking to marketing and sharing feedback and sharing advice. So the fact that it's under one umbrella does not surprise me why Aptitude 8 is doing well and keeping clients and helping market. And like, we love your marketing, and it makes so much sense because you're talking to the clients and the service, or the people that are being serviced. So you have what I imagine is a pretty good feedback loop and collaboration behind the scenes.
For sure. Something you said there I want to index on is, how do we drive value for the customer, right? So whether it's a product or a service, the customer cares most about the product or the service. Like, let's be real. And oftentimes the rap that CS gets is you just want to upsell me. You're just trying to get your call quota or your email quota. But the reality is it's hard to figure out how to drive value when the one thing that they care most about is not you as the CS person, right? So you have to figure out what it is that's going to make them more successful. And how can I even get my foot in the door? How can I even get them to respond to my email? Sure, what you were saying is, if you can actually get that connection point, if you know something about them, which comes as a result of being authentic, which comes as a result of being curious, all you need is just a little bit of a connection point there, that they see you as a human. Then they will hear you. Then they will open up their door, let you in, so that you can show them why you're valuable, or what you have or what you're proposing is valuable. Hey, I noticed XYZ in your account. You haven't done this thing. You probably should, because if you don't, what we see, and then you can share some data points, and then they'll find that credible and valuable. If you don't, what we see is people won't adopt the platform. And I know you invested a lot here, and I know you want your team to be successful. And I know you want everyone to adopt, right? So then you can start opening up conversations for yourself to not just connect with them, but to provide true value, which, like I was saying before, it's value to the customer translates almost one-to-one value to your business.
Yeah, 100%. And then you get to avoid, Kim's been talking a lot about this recently, about just like bad check-in emails from CSMs that aren't adding value, right? And you can still have some of those, but if you have that connection that we're talking about, now it's no longer just this, I know Sherelle's trying to hit his metrics of sending me his emails. And he actually cares a little bit about my problem or my pain or that connection we had. And it doesn't guarantee retention. It doesn't guarantee expansion. None of those things are still true, but it increases your chance that that person responds to your email or engages with you or gives you another chance to do something more of. So I think it's so important that you clearly operate that way and more people think and operate that way.
I think you also have to take credit for every sliver of value that you can bring. So oftentimes, I'll give an example. We had a customer where we were going to offer a discount for them. Something went wrong along the way and we want to make it right. And so the person, we work in services. So the person that works with the customer, not the account manager, not the person in CX, the person who's working with the customer, the project lead, they were about to hit send on an email that was like, hey, I'm going to go ahead and make sure that we, write these hours off or, whatever the specifics were there. And I was like, whoa. Wait, before you hit send, the whole reason that we got to this point where we were able to even have a discussion about writing hours off or, providing a discount is because I, as the account manager, I advocated for this customer. Mm-hmm. I need them to know that I went to bat for them because otherwise they won't know. And it's not like, oh, I'm over here trying to hog all the credit. I just need my customer to know the times I went to bat for them, advocated for them, and then got them something that they were owed. They need to see that. And when they see that's another like, okay, now I know M has my back. Whatever she emails me, even if I don't agree with it or don't have the time, I'm probably going to get back to her no matter what, because I know she's going to fight for me, just like I'll probably fight for her now, right? So there's this credit component, I think, of showing the value, right? Getting the credit for the value that you're bringing. And it's not always clear to the customer. So making it clear is really important.
How do you do that with a service? So we obviously talk a lot about onboarding and care about onboarding, and onboarding products is very different than onboarding a service.
Oh, man.
Drastically different. I mean, there's commonalities, obviously, but what are, in your experiences, some of those like stark differences? And then how do you do exactly everything you said while providing a service where they rely on you to ultimately help them with the service, get going with the service?
So the biggest difference between product and service and onboarding a product or a service is that services are performed by humans. Humans are less predictable, they're less controllable. It means that the trust factor is just insanely critical. A human isn't made up of ones and zeros. Not that you can fully control a product all of the time, right? Things can go wrong that are outside of what you expect to have happen. But with humans, like there is no ones and zeros that I wrote to make a human do anything, right? I've got SOPs and I've got KPIs for my team and all of the things that, everybody should act a certain way, but ultimately they're just humans. So that's one piece of it. I think it also means because what you're delivering isn't you want it to be as clearly defined as possible. But the reality is, and let's think about the consumer world. If I go get a massage or a facial and I don't like it, I can tell my credit card company, I didn't like it. That's not what I thought. And they'll do a chargeback, right? It's not as easy to define the outcome of that service. And is that commensurate with what you paid for? So that's another thing that we really get a lot involved in, right? We want to scope everything down to the T, but we recognize that other things happen. Changes in requirements evolve over time. And so at any point, a customer could say, hey, this isn't what I thought. Mm-hmm. And then we get into expectation management and expectation setting, which I think it's important across the board, product or service. But when it comes to a service, it's just not as easy to define exactly what you're going to be doing, at least in our business. We're a technical consulting firm. It's not so, templated. You get this many landing pages and this many leads will generate. It's really like, hey, we're migrating a bunch of data. It's this many, contacts, this many accounts, this many automations. And then what if for whatever reason, this random automation creates this one little weird contact. And then they're like, hey, everything is broken. Oh, well, surely not every. So then there's a lot more just manual touch. I have to go in and I have to not only set the right expectation for you, but then at times I may have to educate you on exactly what's happening. There's nuance to everything, product and service. But with service, I think there's a little bit more nuance. We're dealing with stakeholders. Each of those stakeholders has their own teams. They're all inside of the system. We're inside of the system. There's just so much going on and so much nuance that it can be difficult for a customer to understand exactly why something happened or didn't happen. I think another differentiator between product and service is the finish line. Where is the finish line? Like product, you want them to stay on for forever. But for a service, if I'm being honest, like sure, from a business perspective, yeah, I would love to have everybody on for forever. But if I'm advocating for my customers and I'm treating them like as if they were my friend or my sister or my family member, I don't want you on forever. I want you to be able to take the keys and run with it yourself. So defining again, where is the finish line? It is so much expectation management. When you're dealing with like a big implementation or honestly any big service, I guess, there's a lot of fear. And I think fear, speaking from my anxious girlies and boyfriends out there, like fear is real and fear is valid. If we're talking about moving an entire system from one to another and you've got integrations that are involved and you've got certain things that don't necessarily map one to one, you have your job is probably on the line. You have the optics of your team probably on the line. And at some point, the business is actually on the line, right? Like if you're a smaller business, things are not as, maybe they're a little bit more fragile and you make the wrong move. You move your CRM from one to another and you wreck your data, or there's like massive data loss. Your business could go under. Your data is the lifeblood of a business, right? Your CRM is the lifeblood of a business. So the fear is real, it's valid. And the other side of fear is hope. So you may have crazy big fears about all of these things that could go wrong, and that's valid too. But there's also the other end of the spectrum, which is hope. I have envisioned in my head, I wanted it to look exactly like this. And what they're envisioning isn't always definable. It's also not always predictable. And it's also not always accurate, which is probably the most common one. I have envisioned this thing. It is this whole world that maybe the sales team painted that vision for them, right? Maybe they painted that vision for themselves, but either way, they may think that, X is going to happen and maybe X.5 or like Y-ish happens. And that might feel like a total failure. And we have to step in and help them understand, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, like all of these things went right. And this one little thing wasn't actually a part of the scope or wasn't, so there's difficult conversations at every step of the way with services, especially technical consulting services. And especially if maybe the customer isn't a technical user, there's just a lot of words, a lot of talking, a lot of expectation setting, a lot of repeating yourself. And that's okay. This is another concept in marketing. I used to feel so annoying all of the time, saying the same thing to people in like slightly different ways. But I think there's a stat out there that it takes roughly 6 impressions for someone to even recognize your brand. So they have to see your logo 6 times, probably in a bunch of different ways and in different places for them to recognize your brand. So saying the same thing over and over again isn't, annoying. It's helping them understand. And it's almost in a way, it's like teaching, coaching, educating. So services is this weird, amorphous, hard to define thing that makes onboarding require so much more of a human touch. And like going back to the point I made about trust, they really have to trust you because again, human beings, if I really wanted to, I could pull something crazy and say, hey, I don't want to do this anymore. Or my boss is crazy and they said that we can't do this thing that you bought and now we have to change it and do it some other way. Anything can happen when you're dealing with humans. So I think it requires, like, I couldn't automate as much. I'd love to automate everything. I mean, the marketer in me is like, dude, hands off, let's go automate everything. But you can't. If trust is required and expectation setting is required, an email that's canned isn't going to do that. It's just not. And I don't think it's what our customers would expect or appreciate. Actually, it's not what I think, it's what I know, because I have certainly tried some, spray and pray, not spray and pray with our customers, but I've definitely, done some canned messaging and people see right through it. And they're like, what? This is a templated message. Why would you send this to me? Did you think I was going to do something? And I've literally got those responses, and it takes messing up. It takes making those mistakes to learn and asking as well. You don't have to always make mistakes to learn, but that's been a big part of my learning is sort of going the wrong way, testing something a little bit, making a pilot group, seeing how this messaging will work or how this approach will work. And then having real candid conversations with my customers, like as if they were my friends or family. Like I need to be real and authentic, but how did that resonate for you? Did it make you feel crappy? I hope it didn't. But if it did, like, let's talk about it. What would be motivating for you? Help me understand what makes you tick. And again, getting back into the curiosity there. But if you don't want to know your customer, you'll never know your customer. And if you don't know your customer, you'll never be able to service your customer or provide the right product for your customer. So
totally.
Long-winded way of saying we got to care a lot, and we have to set the right expectations to build the right trust and build the right relationships to make everybody successful.
I think one thing that's standing out to me that we talk about a lot is like that, the expectation setting, and the problem with, like, you could say everything right and not mislead your customer at all and be 100% confident in that, but the customer still might interpret something differently than what you said. And for us, like in software, when we're in the sales process, we're doing a demo and we're literally showing this is what you're buying. So it's like super straightforward, and there's still room for misinterpretation in that, which is like much more cut and dry. So I'm curious how you think about the relationship with sales from the CX side of things, and how, like, I would just imagine that has to be an even tighter relationship. Like, and we talk about that all the time in software, but like between your sales team and what they're proposing and laying out for the customer, and then what you actually end up delivering, and what is that relationship like?
One important call out is that, and you're kind of getting at it, but our sales team can't really do a demo of our service because, and the big C word is capacity in services. Like, I don't have the team's capacity to go spend time in the sales process if they're working with our existing customers. Mm-hmm. So you don't ever get to see the person or meet the person that you're working with before you get to do it. So I think for CS's and CX's relationship with sales, it means we have to help them understand, like, to paint the picture of what is life like. What is every day going to be like? Because sales does a wonderful job of understanding their needs, gathering their requirements, scoping everything out into a nice clean scope. But when we get sort of to the end of the sales process, that's when prospects will have the question, well, who exactly am I going to be working with? Or what is your delivery methodology? What are the steps that happen? Help me understand, like, give me a day in the life. And that's difficult, right? Because you can't talk to those people. So we circulate, we obviously have a defined methodology, and we put all of that together in the tail end of the sales cycle so that the customer understands what a day-to-day will be like. We help them understand that they have an advocate within the organization for them that's not part of service delivery, that's not part of revenue, that's not part of marketing. Like, we're our own thing, and we're here to advocate for you so that they know they've got someone rooting for them. And also, like, I hate to say, like, providing oversight, making sure that other people are doing their jobs as well. So protecting them from ourselves in a way, which is a terrible thing to say, but hey, if you're an advocate, that's part of the job. So I think it's helping them understand what a day in life is going to be like, what our process is like, things that we do to mitigate risk are another, hey, we run UAT sheets. We gather every single requirement, every single user story. We do testing internally, we do QA, then we do UAT, then we do end-to-end testing. So the more that we can provide for them in the way of steps and process and SOPs for how we deliver our services, the more comfortable they are. But I think as it relates to CX or CS, it's knowing that you have someone there dedicated that's just going to have your back. They're going to be watching everything and everybody, making sure that everything is on time, making sure that everything is under budget. So I think that's probably the biggest piece, is just knowing that there's a connective tissue between them, their delivery team, between the revenue team. They're not selling in a vacuum.
At the end there, you said something that I've personally been curious about, CX versus CS. As someone who uses the title interchangeably at Arrows, what is the difference in your mind? Like, why is your title CX versus customer success? Do you have kind of an idea of what the difference is?
I will tell you how we defined it and how we rolled it out at our organization. So we knew that we needed a dedicated department for customers. We also needed leadership for our marketing team. And so CS is customer success, right? I think that encompasses a lot of account management. CS teams can have like a CS ops person on them, but I needed a title for myself that was going to reflect not just the account management function, but also the external function of marketing. And so, customers' experience starts from the time they land on your website, even before they're even a customer, but when they're a prospect. So managing the whole external experience for a customer encompasses both marketing and CS, but we do call our CS, we call it a CX team. And maybe that's just cultural for Aptitude 8, but I think it's important that success is important. And I appreciate that that's part of the term CS, customer success, but experience gives a bigger picture for me. It's more human. It's more, how does it make you feel versus are you successful? Because I think if we can make all of our customers successful, that's a huge win. But if we can make all of our customers successful and have a really good time while they're doing it, have a great experience, it's more meaningful. Again, I'm getting into the cheesy stuff, but it's more touching. If I can get a customer successful, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're willing to scream from the mountaintops and go help me write a customer case study about it. Usually that requires them having a really good experience with our team and with our people, and something is touching their heart a little bit more than, hey, I got everything I needed, checked all the boxes, let's get in and let's get out. Without the experience component, I feel like it's hard to achieve retention goals and expansion goals. You got to make people feel really special and make them feel like they're having a good time. Everybody, you go to an amusement park and you have a great time. You want to go back, of course. You want to stay there all day.
Right. And to kind of that analogy, that's a good example, because it's like the experience is not just the ride. It's getting there, it's parking there, it's how you're greeted through the entry stalls, it's how the vendors treat you, it's how the people in line treat you, it's how the other people there treat you that has nothing to do with you or your brand. Someone can hate you and still successfully use your tool because they have to, or use your service because they have to. So that just makes me feel good, because that's how I define experience in my head. So I'm glad that resonates and that you also think of it that way.
It really brings up a topic that I really want to discuss, which is hospitality. I don't know if you guys have ever worked in relationships, in restaurants. There's relationships there too. But I think hospitality, I know that hospitality is the heart of excellent service.
Yep.
You have to care. When you said, it's how you get there and what the car ride over. I grew up in the South, and hospitality is just part of the culture there. I don't know. It's the core of excellent customer service. And so What does that mean? Making your guests feel welcome, putting your guests first, making sure they have something to eat, something to drink. They know the rules of the house or where to park their car, right? Like if you're having guests over for a dinner party or something, the hospitality begins far before they walk in the door. It's how you invite them. When is it? Why are we going here? What does the invitation look like, right? Again, I'm getting into the cheesy stuff, but it matters. Like, is the design of the invite pretty? Is it rugged? Is it like some cool, let's hang out and listen to rock music? Like, I need to understand the vibe. What am I getting myself into here? Why are you asking me this? Like I said, where do I park my car? Are you the type of family where you take your shoes off at the door, or do you guys not really care? Do you have dogs? What are you going to eat off of? Are the plates clean? Are the dishes clean? Is everything, in order? Do they have something to wipe their mouth with when they walk in the door? Are they going to be greeted with some water? Or there's so much to making someone feel special and feel at home and cozy. This is like my 2025 word. Actually, it's my 2024 word. I'm bringing it into 2025, but cozy is life. And I want my customers to feel comfortable and cozy in whatever that we're doing. And I think, have you ever heard of Danny Meyer? He's the guy that founded Shake Shack. He wrote a book called Setting the Table. I highly recommend this for anybody in service, whether it's customer service or you're working on the front lines in service. But he has this idea called enlightened hospitality. It's an interesting concept. Maybe we can talk about it, because I think that it could be pulled apart a few ways. But basically, the idea of enlightened hospitality is that you put your employees first so that you can then put your customers first. And this whole trickle down effect of, if you care about the people that are delivering the service and onboarding your customers, greeting them at the door, whether that's product, service, doesn't matter. If you're putting them first, ultimately, the other end of the spectrum is you're putting your investors first. You're putting your customers first, your partners first, your affiliates first. So they all benefit by putting your employees at the top of the chain there. And I think, for Aptitude 8, we have a core value called our people are our greatest asset. And again, as much as I'd love to say our customers are our greatest asset, we wouldn't have customers if it weren't for our people. Our people are what deliver the work. They're the experts. They are our product. Our people are our product, which is crazy to say as well. But I think when we do that and we show our people that they're important, we remind them of their value, not only to this organization, but to the world. Again, cheesy stuff here, but it's important to let your people know the impact that they're making, not just in their role in their day-to-day, but the impact they're making on their team, the impact they're making on their customer and their customer's team. And to hear that back as well is really, really important. I'm sure I hope there's feedback loops for product teams, for services teams. What are the customers saying? Because when the customer feels happy and they're winning, and you give that feedback back to the person who delivered that experience, there's no better feeling, in my opinion. There's nothing more fulfilling than knowing knowing you change someone's world. And even if it's in a small way, you change something about someone's life. How cool is that? What a cool role. What a cool function to be a part of customer success, changing something about someone's life in a positive way. And so, knowing that it all comes from our people is something that means the world to me. Our people are everything at Aptitude 8. We wouldn't be anything without them, and our customers would be lost without them. And so I think knowing that it starts with them is really important. And it's just an interesting concept to talk about, because the typical phrase in customer service is that the customer is always right. The customer is always first. And I do believe that customers are very, very important. But if the pieces that support the customer don't exist or are, fragmented or flawed, it's hard to put the customer first. So I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
I started a LinkedIn post the other day that I did not post, and I opened it with, your customer is actually not always right. So I love that. Now you've given me motivation to go finish my thoughts there. But speaking of cheesy, like you're making my entire heart smile with everything you're saying, because it is so true. The people are so important. And we hear that we're not special. We have customers churn too, just like everyone else. And often, almost every time, a customer will tell us, we loved you, we loved your team, we loved the people, we loved what you're doing, and maybe the product didn't work for us, or maybe our expectations were misset. But that's because of the experience we have fostered from even before marketing, like just being in the orbit of Arrows, the product, then the marketing channels, then the sales channels, then the success channels. And even if the product didn't work out for you, now you still have a memorable impression of us. And if and when you need it again, or if you change companies, you might think of us. Or if you come, and we've heard this too, so-and-so was talking about this, and we shared Arrows with them, and they were no longer a customer of ours, for example. But that's all because of that experience that was fostered and memorable and joyful to work with. And that doesn't mean you can't be stern or or reset expectations or tell people this isn't going to work for you. That just means how you show up as a person for them is so important. And the hospitality piece you mentioned is, I think, critical. I've both worked at restaurants and in hospitality. I also worked at Booking.com from the tech side of hospitality. And when you treated hoteliers that way, like I used to visit hotels all the time, and they would really, Kim's going to hate me, they would wine and dine you. I'm only going to use it once in this call. They would wine and dine you twice because of that service and experience. They would tell you, like, your software has actually changed our life and our business and the way that we operate. And because of that, you are now changing our life, and you as a customer success manager are having an impact on that. And that makes it so much easier to have hard conversations, tell them no when we're not going to have feedback that's going to be accepted, and get them to grow. We're all still trying to run businesses. That primes you to actually get them to expand revenue and spend more and grow with you and extend their contracts. So it is key.
Selfishly, if you just think about, the customer success function, a CSM or an account manager, if that's what you do all day, right, is you try to make everybody's life better. You try to create a lasting impact on all these customers that you're working with, solving for them, in which case, by the way, to your point, telling them no, enforcing a boundary, that's all stuff that gains a ton of respect from customers. So you're doing this all day long, right? Maybe you move on to some other job, or maybe you get out of the industry. You have a wealth, you have a Rolodex of people who you've impacted in such an important way. And I think, as a marketer, I went to a lot of trade shows and I met some people that way, but my network has never felt bigger and more, just stronger than working in CX and just touching so many people and helping so many people. So obviously I want my staff to all stay with me for as long as possible, but I just think about, career trajectory of anybody working in this function. I feel like you create opportunities for yourself just by working in CX, just by being so customer facing and so solutions oriented for customers.
What was coming to mind with the hospitality thing that you hit on, but I think is important, is that it's not just customer success that is like delivering that experience. And I think everyone's talking about, deliver a great onboarding and customer success experience and all of that. But it's like, it does start, like you said, it starts with the invitation, it starts with the marketing, it starts with the sales. And if there's misalignment between any of those steps, that causes distrust, like immediately. So there needs to be, like, that's why I think it's cool that you have that background. And I think hearing more people who have had different roles in different companies and kind of knowing that this all has to tie together, and you can't just focus on customer success and delivering a great customer experience, because if the pieces leading up to that are different and not setting and aligning the same expectations, then you're still going to have a problem. So it has to be the entire organization and the entire like culture that you're setting to deliver the same experience.
100%. It kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier with like, if someone's being a little untruthful or not authentic, you're just like, something's off here. I don't know what it is. But if you're working with an organization where the departments aren't really working hand in hand or things are just feeling a little disjointed, it does it as the end user. You're like, wait, who's right?
Yeah.
Or like, why are you taking me down this path when this person over here is clearly trying to push me down this other path? I don't think you guys know what's good for me anymore. At least I feel very confused when departments are not working hand in hand.
Yeah.
As someone who's onboarded lots of different software products, I've literally been like, let's get on a call with everybody right now and hash it out because I can't live like this. I don't know what you want from me. And I don't want to know if I'm working. I want to know if I'm working with somebody that doesn't get my needs. I need to know that information immediately so that I can pivot if possible. And I think, honestly, that brings up a good point about product versus service. So if you buy like a 12-month, whatever, I guess it doesn't matter, product or service, you could buy 12 months of services and you're locked in. That's like a whole part of the fear and, anxiety around, well, I hope this works out. And if the onboarding experience is sour for something that's a long-term engagement, oh man, talk about fear and anxiety. And that's why I've been there. Let's get on a call right now. And if that's coming from the customer, by the way, and not the customer success manager, the person who's supposed to be advocating for the customer, I think it's a little bit of a beige flag. I would expect if something is a little topsy-turvy, not working out, that someone would reach out and be like, hey, this is clearly a little disjointed here. We recognize this. I'm going to step in and make sure that everything is going to be seamless from here on out. Here are the steps. Here's what we're going to do next. So you know what to expect. Yeah, I can't handle the mismatch process of onboarding. It scares me. If you've invested a lot, imagine you have higher ups. I go and tell someone, hey, I'm going to spend X amount of dollars on something. It's going to take 12 months and we're going to do this right. And I'm leading a team and we're all right. And then it goes kind of sour. And some of that information, some of that stuff seeps into, your leader finds out, oh, you're not managing this project very well. Oh, you're not managing your team very well. Oh, you're not managing your budget very well. Like the impacts are huge just from an onboarding going a little bit sour, making someone feel a little bit uncomfortable. It's actually kind of, I should stop talking about it. Now I'm getting nervous. I'm like, oh gosh.
But the flip side of that is though, and I heard a customer say this morning to me at the end of one of our calls, was you put my mind at ease. She had a ton of questions about how the product worked and how the technical implementation with HubSpot was going to look and feel. And we chatted through all of it. And to the point earlier, there was some stuff I still said no to, like, no, it's just not going to do that. And I'm not going to share the product feedback because I know we're not building that or prioritizing that. Like that is a flat out no. But still, a lot of the things we were able to address and actually solve for her, she ended the call with, this actually puts my mind at ease. And I'm excited to go push this even harder into our organization and get more people using it. And obviously that's what we want in onboarding. And I think one thing I think about a lot lately is like, good onboarding will take everyone through and finish the steps and finish the tasks and all that. Really great onboarding will cause some churn. There will be some people that drop off in there because you likely are resetting expectations. You're digging a lot deeper into the pains and into the needs. And that in and of itself isn't a problem. Now, if every other customer is churning during onboarding, yeah, that's a huge problem. But if every now and again one churns or one realizes, to your point, they thought something different and the product can't actually do it or the service can't actually do it, that's good. Catch that, but then quickly go talk to your sales teams, to your marketing teams, to your CS teams, and prevent it from happening again. But if you're doing it really, really well, you should be causing a little bit of friction with certain customers to reset some of those expectations.
There's never a good time for a customer to churn, but it is better for a customer to churn in onboarding than once they're, a few months in and they're like, oh man, I got all the way down this path. This isn't right for me. You did. And then things fester. Oh, that's how this works. You didn't tell me that before. How come you didn't tell me that when we had our check-in 3 months ago? So I like to, what is happening there basically is you're showing the person what's around the next corner. And I, as a anxious girly, I think about scary movies. And when you're like sitting there and you're like, oh crap, something's going to pop out. Yeah. Well, if you were watching that scary movie with like your bestie and your bestie had already seen the movie, they'd be like, oh, no. The guy's going to come out. He's like a scaly reptilian monster. And it's like, honestly, not that scary. So like, just, it'll be fine. You wouldn't be scared anymore. And that would be bad for movie watching purposes because you wouldn't have the fear, but That's literally what expectation management is you're telling them what's around the corner. Don't be worried. Not monsters around every corner, by the way, not
Totally.
CX, but if there is something that is perceived as a monster to that customer, it's better they see that monster now. If that's part of your process and part of your product or your service, get them out now while it makes the most sense versus like 6 months down the road where it's more painful.
Yeah, and you talk about, you've shared some notes on this with striking while the iron's hot, which is great to take advantage of that energy and that momentum. Mm-hmm. I think the same is true for what we're talking about here. But if it's going negatively, do something about that quickly too, so that those feelings don't linger and grow. And then maybe there's a chance to save it. Maybe there isn't. That's okay. But if you don't save it and you don't do anything about it, now, to what you said very early on, now your brand could also be impacted. Mm-hmm. That person might be talking negatively about you. That person might not be referring you to other places. So striking while that iron is hot on both sides, I think, is also important.
You have to seize every possible opportunity as a account manager, customer success manager, any opportunity that you find to make a customer successful, for them to see the light, for them to be motivated, for them to be driven. You got to take it. And onboarding, right when they're coming off the sales cycle, right? They're really excited. They've just bought something. Anytime I've ever bought anything, I have that like retail therapy thrill just rushing through my blood. Like, yes, I did it. I got it. It's mine now. And you're already thinking about the future, and you're more motivated than ever. And right after you buy a product and right when you get into onboarding, we have to seize that opportunity as the stewards of our customers to make sure that they come a part of our process and a part of our team and our mission and what we do. And now they're a customer of ours. To get them to that point, you've got to make sure that you take advantage of their excitement at that time. Because once they're fatigued, once they have the wrong expectations, or they've learned something the wrong way, or they're tired about it, it's just a lot harder to turn things around. And whether it's de-escalate or create motivation, it's just so much harder outside of that window. So I tell my account managers, like, this is our time to shine. Like, we have other times to shine too. This is our money maker. Like, this is when we can build the relationship, show the value, show them the way. And to your point, if they're not the best fit, that there's no better time than during onboarding to realize that and make some changes that are probably going to be better for the customer and better for you anyways. And in our case, so I guess in product, if you get a bad fit customer, maybe the product just doesn't serve them very well, but it doesn't necessarily hurt the product. In services, if we get a bad fit customer, it hurts our service team, which is our people are our product. It hurts our people. And they're like, oh, but this one doesn't really match. And again, we're dealing with humans. They're toxic. They don't know what they want. I can't wrangle them. They don't see the value. They don't understand what we're doing here. So no matter what I do, they're not going to perceive this as Glenda the Good Witch behind the corner. They're going to see this as the big scary reptilian monster that I just freakishly weirdly described earlier. But it's true. We have to be so careful and so opportunistic with how we treat our customers. They're humans. Our delivery team are humans. And so it's just, again, expectation management. Here's what's going to be around the corner. Here's exactly what's going to happen next. And in onboarding, that's, again, the best opportunity to lay expectations out. Like, sure, it happens throughout the whole lifetime of an engagement or as long as you're with somebody. But onboarding is when you're really teaching them how to do something and showing them this is the way this works. And this is what you can expect. And this is what you can expect, by the way. Here's what we do. Here's what we don't do. All of that is very helpful in getting a customer to be cozy and adopted.
I have one maybe last question for you. So you moved from marketing to CX and obviously have been doing that and you're loving it and very deep in that. Was there anything that was like a major surprise or something that you was maybe like more frustrating or more of like a red flag kind of thing once you got into the CX side of things?
Oh, that's a really good question. The first thing that comes to mind is how much it affected me to see a customer upset and to not just see them, but to face them and to talk to them and to try to understand, and not only understand, but then fix it and quell their fear. And so what would happen in the beginning, and Connor Jeffers, our CEO, he can attest to this. I was like, hey, I have 4 calls today with unhappy customers. That's 2 hours, 30 minutes per call. That's like, okay, cool. That's not that much time. That's not that crazy of a day, but it was like consuming every bit of me to think leading up to that call, they're going to be mad. They're going to be mad at me. They're going to be mad at Aptitude 8, the company that I care so deeply for. They're going to be mad at my delivery team or whatever the situation is. I would like overthink and get really nervous for how upset they were going to be. And then during the call, you rise to the occasion, you have the conversation, you meet them with authenticity because that's like a deal breaker for me. If I'm not going to be myself, I don't want to be on the call. I have to be able to be myself. And so do the call, then, however they react is how they react. And after the call, I would be reeling. I'd be like, oh my God, it would feel almost as if like my best friend or my mother were upset at me. And I had a hard time trying to figure out what to do with that, I guess, empathy that I just like taking on all those emotions. And what has changed for me is seeing it as a solution. It's a problem and a solution. And not only just a problem and a solution, but a problem and a solution with an actual good person behind it. There's a real human being. I'm a real human being. I have answers that they don't know about. They can't read my mind. I can't read their mind either. And not everything has to come down to blame and fault. Again, it goes back to curiosity. Like, I'll give the customer the floor. That's the number one rule that we use when we have escalation calls is acknowledge what's going on and then say, tell me. No, you tell me. This is what I know, but you tell me. And so understanding where they're coming from doesn't mean that they're yelling at you. It doesn't mean that they hate Wingrove and they want me out of the picture or whatever. It means that they're frustrated. And even if they are saying, which doesn't happen, but even if they were to say, no, it's you, it's your fault, you're the reason, I would recognize now that it's just frustrations manifesting themselves as accusations, right? Like I try to think about them. If I were in their shoes, would I be just as mad? And the answer to that question is, if I were in their shoes, I would be like 10 times madder than every customer we've ever had. Right. So if I can remind myself that, then I feel a little bit more calm and more like I have got the answers and I can help here. That's probably the biggest.
It's humans. You nailed that multiple times. Like humans are unpredictable. We all have emotions. We could just be having a bad day. I could be the nicest customer in the world and I had a bad morning and now I'm taking it out on you. And it is hard to do, but I want to double emphasize that CS people out there, don't take it personal. It's 99% of the time it's not you. It is something else, or the product or the goals or like you said earlier, I bought this thing and now my neck's on the line at my company and I'm taking it out on you because the product doesn't do what I thought it did, or I misunderstood.
Again, I go back to that situation and I'm like, if I were in your shoes, I would be ripping someone's head off. I would be so mad. I'd probably be crying. I'd probably be the most emotional, difficult to deal with customer in the world. And so knowing that most customers don't act the way I think I would act in that situation also helps me feel a little bit more calm. But knowing that, you say, some people can be mad, they can be frustrated, but at the end of the day, humans are beautiful. They're beautiful people. That we all have things. We all have terrible things going on in our lives. We all have wonderful things going on in our lives. Like we all wake up every morning on the same earth. Like we're all here doing it together. Like again, with a cheese, but it's true. I mean, you probably have similar stuff that I have going on and vice versa. And we're all just here trying to make it all work. And so putting us on an even playing field always helps, especially going in, like, oh, I'm talking to a CTO and they're going to be upset. Hey, that CTO ate breakfast just like I ate breakfast today. So knowing that we're all sort of here together and good people, I genuinely believe that people are good. And so coming into any sort of a situation with that attitude, I think is really the right way.
Sherelle loves the cheese. You don't know Sherelle that well, but Sherelle is, I guarantee you, absolutely loving this conversation and all the cheese and all the emotions.
I'm smiling so hard. Like can I give Em a hug through this virtual situation here? Like, how do we really embark on this cheesy journey together?
Yeah, exactly.
I love it, but I also believe it and think it's all true. Like it matters. And even if it doesn't matter to you, it matters to me to feel that way and to know that I can have those feelings and emotions and, walk away from my work knowing I did something impactful or tried to change your life in a good way.
If we're not leaving our desks every day feeling like we did something and impacted something, I think it's really unfortunate, right? And I know there's a lot of people in roles that they feel like they just come and check the boxes and leave every day. But if you are so lucky, and I think folks in customer success, because they get such interactions with other humans, if you're so lucky to have a role where you can touch someone else's life, even if it's just for their business system software, like what a cool and wonderful experience, right? How lucky.
Yeah.
And like, one thing I'll share tips with everyone is like, I try to keep a list at the end of the week of things I didn't get to and what I need to focus on next week. And to reduce some of those anxieties. And every now and again, I'll also write a couple things that I did well that week, or a couple feelings that people that I impacted in a positive way, selfishly for me to remind myself that, yes, I did have an impact this week. I did do something meaningful this week. And it's especially true at early stage startups where every day is wild and crazy and you don't know if you're having an impact and things are changing in real time all the time. Give yourself a pat on the back from time to time. Be a little cheesy with yourself and remind yourself that you did good.
I'm here for the cheese, man. No lactose intolerance allowed. all cheese.
All right, amazing. Well, thank you so much, This was really great and loved the chat.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you guys so much for having me, letting me bring all the cheese, all the human psychology and, ethereal, weird, amorphous talk, but it all matters. And I appreciate you guys hearing me out and chatting with me about things that matter. So
doesn't it feel like almost like real therapy? There's some conversation happening here. Yeah.
No, it really does.